Went to the town of Vevay, Indiana. That's spelled Vevay. I got some pictures here following my little narrative. It's in Switzerland County. It was founded by Swiss immigrants who were winemakers. And they named it after the Swiss town of Vevay, Vevey. And when the town was eventually incorporated, they changed the name to Vevay in, quote, a failed attempt to get their fellow Hoosiers to pronounce it the way the Swiss town is pronounced. It's supposedly the home of the first commercial winery in the United States. It was voted the best small town in the Midwest by USA Today. The publication, I don't mean that the USA voted today on that. And I was impressed because there seems to be a bar or two on every block. But what I really found interesting was the juxtaposition between the two bars that I went into, which really gets at kind of what's going on in every small town that I've gone through, which is there was a classy, kind of hip place serving cocktails called Roxy's, and a poo-poo hole kind of place called Boondoggles, which is appropriate. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not talking badly about Boondoggles, but it was the difference between the two places. And Roxy's kind of symbolizes this kind of rebirth or whatever that's going on in a lot of these towns, many of which attribute their recent sort of economic development, like a phoenix coming up out of the ashes of the post-industrial revolution, Rust Belt, to people moving back and investing in the small towns that they're from, coupled with one or two very large investors. And in the case of Vevay, it seems to be the same person. I think I'm forgetting who the person's name is, but she was, I think, like a famous tattoo artist and singer, and maybe a reality show person who came back and bought a mansion and then also has Roxy's. So I went into Roxy's first because that's what everybody says you got to stop in and see, because nobody says you got to stop in and see the local dive bar. Everybody says you got to stop in and see, the new up and coming hip place. And, there's the same wallpaper that's on the southern dining room, living room area of the Schuyler Mansion in Albany, where Alexander Hamilton was married to Elizabeth Schuyler. It is gold, velvet, paisley. I mean, you just want to touch it. If you were on some mind-altering drugs, you'd probably see all kinds of shapes coming out of it. And it's got a chandelier, it's got artwork on the wall, but, artwork that you can't really figure out what it means. It's like, looks like it's from like the Middle Ages, and maybe it's like monks and people with daggers, I don't know, and a beautiful back bar and serving cocktails. And there was a young couple, maybe 30 years old at the end. I had a deep fried deviled egg. Their menu is hand sewn, and it's a little expensive. And then I took a stroll down to Boondoggles, and they got a sign on the outside that says, "Warning, smoking is allowed. You can smoke in here." And it smelled like smoke as soon as I went in. I was the only person there. This is about 5:30 in the afternoon. Bartender, middle-aged woman, I think, doesn't say anything. I'm like, "Hello." She says, I said, "It doesn't look like you have any beer on draft." I said, "Do you have bottles, like a Miller?" She goes, "We got Miller High Life, we got Miller Light." I said, "I'll have a Miller Light." And then I sat at the bar by myself, and gradually, so I'd say a table of maybe 10, definitely retired people, probably in their 70s, I would say, came in. They might have been having like a Wednesday, like happy hour meetup sort of group, bartender knew every one of their drinks. As soon as I walked in the door, she had them on a platter to bring over. They were all friendly. And eventually she made some comment, looked over me and laughed. I think she was just skeptical when I first came in. Whereas Roxy's has a television on the wall that's showing a burning Yule log. Boondoggle's was dominated by 3 gigantic televisions, one showing golf, one showing, I don't even remember what the other one was showing, but then the main one was showing the Wicked Tuna channel. I said, what the heck? And the bartender said, oh, that's so popular around here. I'm going to turn my volume down on my new VHF radio. Anyhow, the Wicked Tuna channel is basically what you would think it is. It's people fishing for tuna fish. And when they cut to a commercial, it says, Wicked Tuna Season 10. Isn't that amazing? Season 10. And they got their own channel. So, I mean, maybe you're wondering what the Wicked Tuna channel is. So, watch some guys, hook a tuna. They got a camera crew. Obviously, I can't get a camera crew to follow me to go to every town, but if you're fishing for tuna, I guess you can. Underwater, oh, there's a tuna. They get the tuna by a hook, and it shows the guy doing this until it's close enough for another guy to jam a spear into the tuna fish. And then they get close enough to wrap a rope around his tail and drag him behind the boat until it's just about dead, I think. And then they bring him to a seawall in the port there, and then they pull him up by his tail. It looks like he's still moving, but then they use sawzalls to cut off his fins and then his head. And it says at the end, produced by National Geographic. Isn't that? Wow, that's great. Then there's a commercial. This is great. A commercial from Google of electricians who look like me, except they're, in t-shirts, and a little cleaned up, And they're building data centers. And it's got a guy who says, I can't wait to show my kids all the work I've done around the country building these data centers. Like the local elementary schools are going to, be given field trips to the data centers to look at rooms filled with servers. That's going to happen. So, I mean, it's just very interesting. It's just going to these 2 places. It basically symbolizes the 2 types of places I feel like that I've gone to on this trip, one town after another. And it reminds me also of Coxsackie, New York, on the Hudson River, maybe 115 miles north of New York City, maybe a little more. You land in the town. 10 years ago, it was just a bunch of abandoned buildings, but now there's a 6-story restaurant, and you can go in at a convention center, and you go in and take an elevator up to the restaurant at the top, and you can look out, get beautiful views, look at some lobsters, and take a look at the menu that's got a $22 martini that comes with an oyster. And then I recommend that you get back on the elevator, go down to the street, cross the street, and go to a place called Ravage that my friends own. And there's 2 bar stools, more like 1.5. A dog that's always on the couch, kind of yapping, and a bunch of people around my age who work for a living and like to drink and have fun. And so you often see that. I feel like, the few times I've been in there in recent years since that other place was built, you'll have the people come in off their big yachts and they get their dinner over there, and then they come on over for a Utica Club or a Modelo Especial or something like that, and maybe a shot of Jameson. Anyway, interesting juxtaposition, and I'll put those pictures of Vevay at the end here. Vevay.